Hello, my friends. My name is Gerdes. Here are four big, huge, amazingly large stories for today. So first, former Ukrainian member of parliament was assassinated near her Lviv home. We don't know a lot about her. A former Ukrainian member of parliament has been shot and killed in the street near her home in Lviv. 60-year-old Iryna Farion, I might be pronouncing that wrong, and I hate to do that, was rushed to the hospital after an assault and later died from her injuries. A manhunt is currently underway for her attacker, who fled the scene. Now, what we know about her is that she was a ultra-nationalist Ukrainian, and she was like against even Azov folks speaking Russian. Like, that's how ultra-nationalist she was. All necessary forces from the National Police of Ukraine and the Ukrainian security services had been deployed to search for the criminal. Farion served as a member of the Ukrainian parliament for the ultra-nationalist party from 2012 to 2014. She was best known for her campaign to promote the use of the Ukrainian language by Ukrainian officials who speak Russian. Farion was a professor of Ukrainian language at the Department of Lviv Polytechnic University. And again, controversially, she criticized Russian-speaker members of Ukraine's Azov regiment who defended the port city of Mariupol in the first days of the full-scale invasion for speaking Russian rather than Ukrainian. Like, that's how much she was in support of Ukraine and Ukrainian language. Okay, that's terrible. It's tragic. This kind of thing shouldn't happen. Blinken, this big story number two, and this is potentially even larger, like the largest story I've seen for a long time. Iran may be able to produce nuclear weapons in 2 weeks. Now, I don't know if that'll happen in 2 weeks or if it'll be 2 months or whatever it is. But when Ukraine gets nukes, they're going to start acting like Russia in a much more aggressive way. Since the nuclear deal was rejected, we are not talking about a year before Iran can produce more material for nuclear weapons, but perhaps 1 to 2 weeks. Here's the actual story in USA Today. Blinken saying this, Iran may be 1 or 2 weeks away from being able to produce the materials necessary for nuclear weapons, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said on Friday. Where we are now is not a good place, Blinken told an audience at the Aspen Security Forum in Colorado. No, it's an absolutely horrible place. And the whole lesson of Ukraine is get a hold of nuclear weapons. Otherwise, a country with nuclear weapons can do what they're doing to you, and you can't really fight back, because the only reason that the U.S. and other Western countries aren't letting them punch into Russia in a more meaningful way is because of the nuclear weapons threat. What we need to see, Blinken said, if Iran is serious about engaging, is actually pulling back on the work that it's been doing on this program. Why would it? Why on earth would it do that? He added that the U.S. government has maximizing pressure on Iran across the board. We've imposed more than 600 sanctions on Iranian persons and entities. We haven't lifted a single sanction. That's not going to stop them. I mean, if you think that you're going to stop them with that, that's just foolhardiness. Okay, next big story. ISW, the Institute for the Study of War, saying that Hungarian Prime Minister Orban appears to be augmenting Russian info ops. Orban's peacekeeping report supports Russian narratives, urging EU-Russia diplomatic normalization, questioning Western support for Ukraine, potentially undermining EU policy on Russian aggression, while Orban is the rotating chair of the EU Council. Okay, the U.S.-based Institute for the Study of War says that Orban appears to be augmenting several Russian information operations amid continued efforts to present himself as a possible future mediator. On 18 July, Orban released a report from his peacekeeping mission that includes his visits to Ukraine, Russia, China, and Turkey, and the U.S. And here, Orban attempted to shift the responsibility for negotiations onto Ukraine and questions the sustainability of U.S. and European support, aligning with Russian information campaigns designed to weaken Western backing for Ukraine and deflect blame for the invasion by Russia. Russia's fully to blame for the invasion. Russia did the invasion. PM Orban called for the PM is Prime Minister, Orban called for the EU to normalize diplomatic relations with Russia, a move that aligns with the Kremlin's efforts to appear reconciled with the West through diplomatic engagements, even though they're certainly not going to actually go there. This stance supports the Kremlin's narrative of diminishing Western opposition and undermines EU policies addressing Russian war crimes and aggression toward Ukraine. So that's where they are. And so you kind of smelled a rat when Orban was first visiting with Zelensky, and then he surprise visited Putin. They're like, yeah, something's up. And that's why. Now, why would he be doing that, though? Hungary faces a fuel crisis as Ukraine cuts off Russian oil supplies, so at least part of the rationale may be economic, where the ties to Russia are both economic as well as cultural. Why the NATO country hasn't found an alternative is a rhetorical question. Well, they haven't, and they should have, but they're not interested in finding an alternative. Here's Anton Gerashenko. He's saying, I want to share with you some thoughts by the Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Estonia. And he was at the Aspen Security Forum. He says that Putin has to derail us at all costs this year. The two tools that he uses against us are fear and false hopes. He said that he is not interested in peace. He's interested in derailing our policy. The way it would work is similar to Minsk 3 or Minsk 2 on steroids or something like that. But again, Putin is playing a clever game where he's kind of up against the wall, but he has us thinking that we're the ones that are up against the wall in the West. And it's really kind of smoke and mirrors. It's a fascinating thing to watch. All right. Meanwhile, Zelensky was speaking with both Donald Trump and talking about J.D. Vance. Zelensky's spokesperson said that during the conversation between the Ukrainian president and Donald Trump, there was a discussion about the possibility of the latter's visit to Ukraine, but it is too early to discuss specifics. And if Trump actually visited Ukraine, it would be quite an event. And to go there, I think his position would shift if he actually showed up. So for Trump to actually go to Ukraine and see this with his own eyes, I think could actually have some effect in shifting. Meanwhile, Zelensky is responding to Trump's vice presidential candidate, J.D. Vance, who is probably one of the most pro or anti-Ukraine voices in the Senate so far. Zelensky said this, maybe he really doesn't understand what's going on in Ukraine. We have to work with the U.S. if a new team will come. We have to work with them. It will be hard work, but we're not afraid of hard work. I like how he threaded the needle. He's not like, for Zelensky right now, one of the worst things he can do is just badmouth the other side, the opposition party to Biden, that's the Republicans, and when you may very well have to work with them. So he's got to be very careful and very diplomatic, and he comported himself well. Here, this last little clip, I'm not going to play what is being said, but this was Che Bao's. He said, "We have liberated Europe from fascism, but they will never forgive us for it," Marshal Zhukov said in 1945. Now, I'm not going to tell you what she says, but I'm going to show you the video, and then I'll tell you what she says. Here's the video. Notice she's pounding the table, and you have Hitler in the background pounding the table. Okay, so what's the message? She's the equivalent of Hitler. But what is she actually saying in the video? She's saying, we will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes. But yet they're linking Hitler to her. But what Hitler did is what Russia is actually doing by invading their neighbor and trying to take over. She's standing on the side of the oppressed, not on the side of the oppressor. And yet this is what Che Bao's from RT is going to present on Twitter to the world. It's absolutely bizarre. All right, my friends, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for the likes and the shares and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.